I feel tonight, and by the way, Sam, great job that you've done so far. Great praise, great worship. I really felt something special that God was doing in this place, and I think it's the beginning of COVID, from the end of COVID, from the beginning of where we've just been shut down as meeting together for so long. And we had to do what we had to do, but now we've got the opportunity to get back together. I think that we should not take it for granted as much as we used to. Because God can do some stuff when we're together that he just doesn't do when we're at home by ourselves. I mean, I talk to God at home. I pray to God at home. I read my Bible at home. But when I sit here on a Sunday evening and someone else is preaching, or someone else is singing, or someone else is sharing something, or we're in corporate worship, there is something that just lights me up on the inside. It's like God is thicker and clearer, and he's just there. And I pray that you feel that too, because that's why we have a church like this. That's why we meet together like we do, because I'm telling you, God definitely promises that when 2 or 3 gather in his name, he is there. Now, we know God's everywhere, so it seems like a crazy verse to put in the Bible, but he's more there. One can put 1,000 to flight, but 2 can do 10,000. So it's like a 10 times synergy from what happens when you're by yourself to what you're with another person. What happens when 4 or 5 or 6 people get together? Let alone hundreds or thousands of people get together. There is just something that God just loves. He made the church. He put the church together. He said, on this rock, on this revelation, I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it. That was God's answer to this world. He died for us, gave us grace, did an incredible thing for us, and then he said, that's it. This is going to be my pillar. This is going to be my strength. And we tonight, and watching online and watching downstairs in the studio, we are a part of that. And I just think it's awesome. Now, I got something I want to share with you, and I've been warming up for this for the whole of January. Since we have come back from COVID, and right throughout the entire month of January, I have been preaching through a series. You would know that. If you're here, you would know that I've talked about it. This is the 3rd week that I've been sharing on this topic. And the topic is this: why are we here? What is this church for? It's a vision for the church. It's a vision for what, not just the church, but what specifically this church is doing. I shared a couple of weeks ago, if you belong to this church and you come to this church and you give to this church and you serve in this church, it's really good that you know where this church is going. Because this church has a mission from God that I believe we need to fulfill. And that mission has not been stopped. It has not been taken away because of COVID. It hasn't ended because, another year has clicked over. God has something very specific for this church to do. And I've been sharing about that for the last 3 weeks. And I want to finish off on that today. And then as we go into the new year, as we go into Feb, as we go into everything opening back up again, there's going to be a whole bunch of other topics that we want to talk about. But today I want to finish this topic about what this church is called to do. Now, we started with this, and it's come from Luke chapter 5, halfway through verse 10. It just says this. It says, "From now on, I will call you fishers of men." And this is Jesus when he got his very first disciples. So Jesus is out there, he's on earth, he's doing his thing, he's starting to gather the 12 disciples that are going to go on to run the church and all the stuff that he wants to do down the track. And he goes up to them in their fishing boats. He shows them that he's God. He's talking to them, preaching to them, gives them a massive catch, talked about all of this in the past. And then he says, now I'm going to make you fishers of men. Verse 11 says this: so they pulled up their boats onto the shore, they stopped, they left everything, and they followed him, and they went out and started what we would call today the church. The church that went out there, and as Jesus put it, to fishermen, are now going to fish for men. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me just explain it to you. He's saying this: once you find God, once you find God, or once I find God, he wants to get all the people that have found God on however way they've found him. He wants to then put us all together, and we call that a church. And then he says, I want you as a church to then go and tell other people about him. It's not just our little secret. It's not just our thing that, oh, I got saved and now I'm going to heaven and God's helping me get through some stuff. And then I'm not telling anybody else about it. It's just between me and God, and that's it. And I'm just going to stay in my bedroom and get super, super good at everything that I do with God. And everyone else has to work it out themselves. The church is here because people need to hear it from us and come to places like this to experience what God has done for each and every one of us, but he's also done it for them. Everybody with me on this one? Now, it's just a short recap. We've just bringing you up to speed. If it's the first time you've heard me talk about it this year. But this is establishing the vision of what this church does, and one of the main focuses that we have, both in youth, children, adults, seniors, every aspect of the church is looked through this filter of not only what we're doing and how God is helping us, but how are we also helping other people get to know God and find him? Otherwise, shut the doors. Turn the lights off. Forget about coming out. Just be saved. See you in heaven. Gotcha. Good job. No problems. We all know when you say it like that, it can't be true. So therefore, how do we articulate and how do we go forward in what God has called us to do? If we are called to fish for men, which means helps people find the reality of God and his grace and all that we know about it, and the church is the fishing boat, the place where we worship together, we pray, we preach the word, we connect with each other, then I want to talk to you today about what sort of fishing boat is this church? Or what sort of boat is this church if we're called to be fishermen and the church is the fishing boat where you can bring the catch into and develop them, clean them and do it all you do once you catch a fish out of the water and it gets in the boat, then what sort of boat are we? Does anybody know what sort of boat this would be as a fishing boat, and what would we be doing in this church that could be a little bit different from maybe some other churches worldwide? And it's not that any other church or any other denomination or any other movement or any other mainstream church of the world is wrong, but we need to know what we're doing and what our calling is and how we are going to do it. So today I want to chat to you about what sort of fishing boat are we. Hang on a minute, that's wrong. Rewind the tape. I've got a better way of doing this. What about, instead of talking about what sort of fishing boat we are, why don't we talk about what sort of boat we're not? See, I think if I flip it this time, and instead of talking about what fishing boats do, let's talk about some other boats and what they do and see if you can spot the difference between what this church is going forward and doing and maybe what some other churches are doing. As I said, not a competition. There's all of these other boats. They're great boats. They float. They're probably going in the same direction. But what specifically is our boat doing that maybe some other boats aren't? And what are those boats doing that maybe you won't find as strong in this church? Because once you work that out, I'm telling you, you will know, you'll be confident to give. You'll be confident to serve. You'll be confident to help with the kids. You'll be confident to help with the seniors. You'll be confident to help in the sound box. You'll be confident to be a part of the band, because it's not just coming to church for coming to church's sake. There's a purpose and there's a reason. So let me start with the first boat we are not. Now, please, if you're taking notes, right on the top of it, these are the boats we are not. Okay, this is not what we are, it's what we're not. But I reckon we'll get the point by the end of this. What sort of boat we are not? The first boat we're not is we're not a merchant ship or a merchant boat. We are not a boat or a church that all we're interested in is how many containers can we stack up? Like how high can we make the containers before they fall over? How much cargo can we get from A to B on the deadline of A to B? If we've got to get it done, we've got to get it done now. Every moment we're sitting in port, the clock's ticking, the dollars are going up because you've got to pay the docking fees for the merchant ship. And the sooner that boat gets out of there, another merchant ship comes in, and then those containers are loaded up, and then they go to their destination. We are not just shifting cargo for cargo's sake. We are not just gathering people for people's sake, just to see how high we can stack them, just to see how big this church can be compared to the church down the road. We're not just trying to get them in the door and then get them to tick the box and then get them out the door. We're not there because it's all about how much money they can give to the church, because it's like a merchant ship running how merchant ships run. That's not the sort of boat that this church is. Jesus got into a fishing boat, not a merchant ship. Jesus used fishermen, not men that were on a deadline, or churches are on a deadline to just see who's the biggest in the town or the biggest in the west or the biggest anywhere. And we got to realize that when Jesus gets into fishing boats, then Jesus will also get into fishing churches. If you want to feel God in a greater way, do not run your Christian life or treat this church like a merchant church or a merchant boat. Jesus doesn't get on them. He didn't use it as an example. He used a fishing boat, not a merchant ship, just to get people in and out and see who was the best. Jesus hung out in fishing boats. Let me tell you the next boat we're not. I've got to take my phone out. This one's going to hurt some people. And I don't mean to hurt you, but we are not a cruise liner. There's another boat we're not. Now, for those that are new and young, we are not the Ruby Princess. That's not what we are. The most famous cruise ship of all time, only second to the Love Boat. Who remembers the Love Boat? Put your hand up if you remember the Love Boat. Come on, be honest. There's a few of you that remember the Love Boat. You're all over 20, but you know the point, okay? So let me talk about cruise ships. We're not a cruise ship. Now, what does a cruise ship do? A cruise ship is just about making you feel good. Anyone ever been on a cruise? You get. I've been on a couple. You get on them, and it's like, welcome, Mr. Minturn, to the boat. Look, just have a drink on arrival. Look, your room's down there, and if you don't know where it is, we will take you down to your room. And you know what else happens on a cruise liner? You wake up in the morning, and you just go, I think I'll have another drink and sit by the pool. You know what happens while you're sitting by the pool? Somebody else makes your bed. You go to the pool, you have a drink, you go back to your room, and boom, the bed is made. Not only is the bed made, the really cool cruise ships, they make your towel into a little animal. It's like a monkey, or it's like a snake or a swan. And it's just the most fantastic boat you could ever want to go on. They do everything. And if you feel hungry, you just wander up to the buffet and somebody else has cooked everything. All you have to do is put whatever you want on your plate, you put it on your plate, and you can just try. Not really. Let's get another plate and try something else over on this buffet. Everything is just put on for you. Everything is done for you. Cruise ships are the bomb. The problem is, this church is not a cruise ship. It's say it with me, fishing boat. And you may want to go to a church that's a cruise ship, but you're going to be really, really unhappy here if you think this ship is a cruise ship. Because when the first person doesn't do what you want, when you want it, how you want it, when you say you want it, and if the chips aren't warm enough downstairs and the Coke's not cold enough and the music's not the right temperature and the smoke's too thick or anything is not done when you get back, if your car's not washed when you go back to go home, you're upset. Not a cruise ship. And when you know that, you realize that this church is focusing everything around a fishing culture to help people find God, the same way that Jesus got his disciples from fishermen and got into a fishing boat. When he gave this fishing message, he did not get onto the love boat and tell us how awesome it was going to be. He did not promise you that everything was going to be perfect. He did not tell you that if you complain about your bill, they'll dock 10% off. You can't just line up and wait by the pool until your massage is ready or your private session is ready for your counselling session or the 50 millionth time you've been on the... It's not a cruise ship. And when you realise what sort of boat this is not, you're going to be saying, oh, wow, I got a coastside. Yeah, it's a great church. It's a fishing church. It's like a fishing boat. People go, oh, you should come to my church. Everything's so amazing. The floors are always done. They don't ask you to do anything. You don't have to give anything. You don't have to serve anywhere. You go, oh, yeah, well, enjoy your cruise liner church. Coastside's a fishing church, and unfortunately, we have to pitch in every now and then and do a bit, and it's not just all laid on for us. Did that hurt that much? I hope not. Anyway, let's just move on. What sort of other boat aren't we? Oh, here's a good one. We're not a barbecue boat. You know, you pay $300 and you hire a barbecue boat out down at the point down there. You know, for Cherie's birthday, she's sitting down in the lounge room. Hi, Ree. But I took Cherie out on a barbecue boat. And it was up near the Gold Coast, and we got on the river, and I hired this barbecue boat, and I got her favourite drinks and her favourite food. I was trying to make it like a cruise liner, but it was really just a barbecue boat, but I was trying to disguise it, did everything for her. But the whole idea of this barbecue boat was you go out there and have a barbecue. You know, there are boats down in Sydney, and I'm sure there's some here in Port and everywhere else in the world, where you can just go on there and have a dinner. Just go on there and get some food, and you just sit there, and it's like a floating restaurant is what they call it. Well, this church is not a floating restaurant. And let me just point a few things out. When you go onto a floating restaurant, you're looking for what's on the menu. You're looking to see whether the church, or my mistake. The fishing, restaurant boat is serving up what you like to eat. It's sort of the. That's why I don't mean church, and I don't mean the fishing boat church. But when it's a restaurant boat, it's like, do I even like what they're serving? Do I even like that menu? I mean, I would love to go out on a boat that, you know, was a floating restaurant, but I don't know whether I really like that menu. I don't really know if I like what they're serving, or whether it's my style. Like, I like eating, but eating on the water, I don't know if I really want to go on a floating restaurant, or I don't know, that's not my preference, probably. See, if you think that your church is a barbecue boat or a floating restaurant, you're always checking to see what's on the menu. Or I wonder what Mark's preaching today. I really hope it's just something that makes me feel good on the inside, and I just want to go to church and go home feeling, I feel full and I feel content, and I can't wait to go back and have another meal there next Sunday, because it just makes me feel good. And then all of a sudden, Mark gets up and preaches a message, and it's about generosity. Oh, if I knew he was going to talk about generosity, I would have gone to another restaurant. I wouldn't have gone to the floating restaurant. I would have gone to Hog's Breath. It's on the land. They don't ask for that. If I knew that they're going to sing that song, if it was going to be that, that's not my preference. Look, I want to square a church. This one's it's got stairs. It's not my thing. If you don't like stairs, come before 5. You can come in flat. But it's not the stairs, it's the mentality. It's like I'm going to a floating restaurant, and that's the boat that I'm on, and I just hope they serve what I want, and I hope they're talking about the right things, and I hope they're saying the right things, and I just hope the messages are good, and I don't like hearing about those things, that Holy Spirit thing, or that money thing, or that, you just pick and choose. We're not that. Sometimes you're going to hear that sometimes you need to love people, even if you don't like them. Sometimes you're going to have to forgive people, even if you don't want to. Sometimes you're going to have to let go of bitterness, even if you don't want to. You're going to get things on the menu that will give you a balanced diet, not just your favorite topic. And you need to understand that this ship's a fishing boat, and we need to realize that sometimes forgiveness and loving regardless and letting all those things, they're going to come up. And I'll tell you why. Because Jesus doesn't live on a barbecue boat. He doesn't really hang out on barbecue boats. My Bible says he hangs out on, fishing boats. Here's another boat we're not. You like these boats? Never knew there were so many boats, right? Let me just give you a couple more, and then I'm done. We're not a submarine. Now, submarines, they can be on top of the water, but they can even go below the water. They're a boat, but they can go under the water as well as on top of the water. We are not a church that goes so deep that we're no good to anybody. We are not a boat that has to get to the very depths of every topic and the very, how many candlesticks are in Jerusalem and why there were 17 of them in the holy tabernacle of frail embroidery stuff of the Jewish culture. No, I don't say it's wrong. Obviously, you can tell I don't know anything about it. But we are not a church where you're going to get messages that are so deep that they're no good to anybody. Here's heads up. No one lives at the bottom of the ocean. No one we're fishing for lives on the bottom of the ocean. People live in a real world with real problems. We want to learn about the tabernacle or how many candlesticks did whatever, and people just want to know how to keep their marriage together. They just want to know that their kids can get help. They want to know that someone can sit down with them and say, you know what, you don't have to take drugs, you can do it this way. They just want their kids to understand that Jesus died for them and they don't have to follow Buddhism or some other cult, that there's a real God with a real spiritual element that has a real relationship. They need to know the A, B, C of Christianity. They don't need to know the X, Y, Z that some churches and other boats, not wrong, but it's not us. That's not what you're going to bring people to. If we speak a message from this pulpit and someone that's never, ever, ever been to church cannot understand what we're talking about, we've blown it. That's why I explain things as simply as we do. So whether you've been here for 20 years or whether it's your first time, you at least understand what we're talking about and how it may be relevant to your life. People just need to know where they're at. 1 Corinthians 9:19. Let me just read this out real quick for you. And I got one more ship and then I'll get the band up. But 1 Corinthians 9:19 says this. This is Paul speaking. Though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to win everyone and to win as many as possible. To the Jews, I become like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law, I become like those under the law to win those under the law. To those that have no law, I become like one that has no law, even though I'm under God's law. So as those having no law, I can win them. To the weak, I become weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people so that, listen to this, by all means possible, I might save some, catch some. Paul became like the people and associated like people he was with. We don't need to be a church that's so deep that no one knows what we're talking about. We need to know where people are at and talk to them where they're at. Last ship before I get the band, so just hang on, band, just for a few minutes. Here it is. We are not the USSR battleship. We are not setting up for World War III. We are not always looking for a fight. We are not always blasting demons. We are not always fighting devils. We are not trying to name demons so then we can fight them. We are not trying to point out people who have got demons so then we can fight the demons that are in those people. Listen, some churches are killing demons that even God doesn't know about. Now there's a place for everything. But we are not a battleship. And we don't spend our entire time on the altar blasting everything that moves and blaming the devil for everything. You know what? The devil actually doesn't. I mean, he's bad and we've got to bind him. And there's a whole topic about that. But you know what? Most people just choose the wrong thing. That's how they get into trouble. Even if the devil's there, he can't make you do anything. He didn't make Adam or Eve take the apple. He just suggested it, and they chose badly. So what about we just stop trying to be a battleship and help people make good choices when temptation comes their way from the devil that we've named 6 times, pointed out who's got it, and then tried to get it out of them, and all that sort of stuff. As the band comes, if you know what sort of ship we're not, you can really get on board with what sort of ship we are. Here's the verse that I preached for the whole of January. It says this in Luke 5, verse 1 and verse 11. One day, as Jesus was standing by the lake, the people crowded around him to listen to the word of God. Before he had any disciples, before there was a church, before everything. He saw on the water's edge 2 boats left there by fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Then he sat down and he taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, Jesus, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boats, the other fishing boats, "Come and help us." And they filled all their boats, and all the boats were so full they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell on his knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man." He realized that he needed to fix stuff up. Jesus didn't point out he was a bad person. Jesus just showed him how to fish, and he realized he needed to change some things in his life. For he had all his companions were astonished. They caught so many fish they had taken. And so were James and John. This is the verse we started with today. Then Jesus saw Simon, said, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people." So they pulled up their boats on the shore. They left everything to follow him. That's one of the first disciples that was ever called, that started what we now call the church. Jesus made it a foundation stone of what the first disciples were going to do, showed them how to do it, and the whole thing was unfolded. This is what the disciples did when they followed God. This was what Jesus told them to do when they became disciples. This is the main mission of the church. All the other things are part of the church, but they're not the main reason for the church. Everything we do here at Coastside Church is through the filter of this mission. So let's be the church that helps other people find God. And when people walk in, remember this. With every preach that we preach, every song that we sing, every event that we run, everything we do, let's keep this in the forefront of our mind, that we're fishing for people to help people find the God that we've found. We are here to help others find God. And on that journey, you find God. That's why you're here. And on the journey of us finding God and helping others find God, He will help you. He will heal you. He will forgive you. He will bless you. And He will keep you. He will take care of you. He will help you and you and you and you and all of you. He will help you. He will help me on the journey, because none of us are perfect, of helping other people find God. He will heal and help and bless us as we do what He's called us to do. There are so many boats / churches that are prioritizing these other things, thinking it's going to make them good. But you know what? You don't get healed and helped and blessed when you're just a boat that's not doing what God's asked you to do. So if we do what God's asked us to do, then God will take care of us.